How's it going, everybody? It's your boy. Okay, let me try again here.
Hello there, everybody. It's the Skeletalbassman here.
I'm the Nightman. And we are the ScifiGuys. So, what did you think of this movie?
So how long has this been going on, this thing? We hired Georgina and Walter to help care for my parents. When they died, I couldn't bear to let them go.
Good to see another brother around here.
Get out.
Sorry, man.
Get out! Yo!
I have to tell you, this week, by the way, guys, we're reviewing the smash hit 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, totally not bought, completely legitimate. No way that's bullshit.
They don't have to buy those critics, okay? The critics they've bought and paid for themselves. There's one critic left in this world who's not afraid to say, you know what? No, Selma is not a perfect movie. The 13th is not a perfect movie. Get Out is not a perfect movie. And this time it was a guy from the National Review. Go figure. I'm not even joking about that.
So this week we're reviewing the movie Get Out. Very controversial movie, I guess you can say, in the headlines. Some people love it, some people don't like it. We decided to go see it, and so what'd you think of it?
Oh, I asked you first. Well, okay, I'll go. I thought it worked as a B-movie horror kind of thing.
Is that it?
That's it. I thought it didn't work on a lot of other levels, like as like a social commentary. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, it's like such a poignant social commentary. It cuts right to the heart of the issue." I don't know. I think it was just sort of race bait. It wasn't horrifying. It wasn't frightening. There weren't those like moments where it was just like, holy shit, disturbing kind of stuff.
Yep.
And as a comedy, it really didn't work for me. I thought the comedy was just sort of shoehorned in there at really awkward points and didn't really had anything. I mean, I don't know. There's a place for comedy in any movie, I'd say. But except for Paul Thomas Anderson movies. Yeah, it just didn't work for me. And it was like sketch comedy too. It wasn't like blended with the movie. It was just sort of okay, now we're going to do the sketch where he's in a police station. This one's going to be a real funny one. It just didn't work for me. So it didn't work as a horror. It didn't work as a comedy. It didn't work as a social commentary. It just worked as sort of a B-movie slasher. And I'm just sort of shocked that every critic loved it. I don't know. I guess I'm not that shocked.
Well, we can talk about that. I agree with you on a lot of points. I think your point about the sketch comedy aspect not quite working plays out in a lot of my ratings. I actually had to go back through it and rate some things higher because I was being a little bit overly. When I was reading you the stuff last night, I was actually a little overly harsh, so I fixed a few things to be a little bit more forgiving. Because I think
because I didn't really like this movie that much, and my score ended up higher than yours, and you were like, yeah, I kind of liked it.
I mean, looking at the score I have now, I think is exactly what I said when I walked out of the movie. I turned to Sydney and I said X, right? I said the final score, and a range, and this fell right in the middle of that range, so I'm pretty happy with it. In terms of what I thought of it, I actually, even as a B-movie slasher, this just isn't a good horror movie. It's not scary. It's suspenseful in like two places, but overall, it's not scary. It's not original, and and the people writing it clearly don't understand the horror genre. That's why it's not scary.
Why don't we quickly run down the plot of the movie for our listeners here?
Sure. So basically, if you haven't paid attention to the hype train, Get Out is a movie about an African-American male dating a white woman, and she's like, "Oh, I want you to meet my family this weekend." So they jump in their Lincoln SUV. Totally not product placement. Oh, that was another point about this movie. The product placement was so fucking blatant. Everybody had a Microsoft, like a Windows tablet. Just like
Oh my god, thank you.
right at their fingertips. Like, oh, thank God I have this Windows tablet to help. Let me search Bing for missing black men.
Oh wow, it came right up. First thing. Wow, Bing is so great, and so is this tablet.
But anyway, the plot is they're going to the parents' house for like a weekend trip, you know, meet the family, and the black boyfriend is like, oh, you know, do they know I'm black? I'm worried about this. And she's like, it's not, they don't see color, honey. It's not gonna matter. And he's like, okay.
If you watch Girls, by the way, the main girl, the girlfriend is a character on Girls. I think it's like Margie or
The one that can't really act that much.
the one that can't act.
So they go to the house. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit creepy and odd. And then slowly it's revealed that there's something up. All the black people in this like little town are acting very strangely, and they're all
they're acting very white.
And then our main character's like, "What?" It's one of the 5 words that he can say in this movie. He goes,
Okay.
"What?" Okay, cool, sure, yeah. What the fuck? Okay, cool, yeah, sure.
Damn, man. That, as an aside, you should go see John Wick 2. Because Lawrence Fishburne's in it. And he says, damn. It's like it's his new thing now. He's like, I will sign the contract to be in this movie, but I have to say damn at some point. And it's going to be a big moment. Like 5 seconds on either end of me saying damn. Damn, son. Anyway, proceed.
Yeah, so he's like, oh my god, these people are acting really strangely. The white people are acting really strangely. They're saying all this weird racist stuff. And then it turns out this is actually a trap, and they're going to cut his brain open and insert the brain of the highest bidder, almost all of whom are white.
And then they'll live inside that black body.
Yeah, they'll live inside the black and brown bodies.
The black and brown body.
And then he has to escape and blah blah blah. Anyway, so that's the summary of the movie. I think back to how I feel about it. I don't think this works as a horror movie on any level, really. There are individual moments, right? Like
You don't think it even works as like a cathartic gore fest?
No, actually, no. Because the gore in this movie is not. There's only one good gore shot, and that's when he rams the antler. Spoiler alert!
Antlers.
When he rams the antler of the deer into the father's fucking face or neck or whatever. That's the only gore shot we get. Everything else is kind of hidden out of sight, actually. Somebody brought this up to me. They're like, well, don't you think it was like nice and gory and violent? And I was like, it wasn't gory at all. Like, this is when you ask a really vanilla person what BDSM looks like, and they're like, well, one person tickles the other person with a feather, and then the other one calls him a very bad boy, and that's BDSM. You know, it's just like, it's like someone who knows nothing about the genre thinking they do. And that was Jordan Peele. Anyway, yeah. So as a gore movie, I don't think it really works. It's just it's not a gore movie. It's not scary. It's hardly suspenseful. So and it's written by a guy who writes sketch comedy. So the only thing I can possibly think of is that this is a comedy movie. That's all I can think of, is that this is actually a comedy. And that's
I'm also going to grade this on a curve because it's his first movie and he's a young guy. So it's like this is his first time like making a movie. It's pretty good. Like, I probably couldn't have done this well, you know? I can criticize it all I want, but I mean...
I think if I see Jordan Peele's name on another movie in the next couple of years, I'll go see it. Because
Absolutely.
You could tell that this guy is smart and is actually trained and knows what he's doing and actually, like, understands some stuff. He doesn't understand horror, but he does understand some stuff. And I also kind of graded this on a curve because I was like, ooh, we kind of have, this could be Jordan Peele graduating from like making comedy for 18-year-olds and actually making real stuff. Anyway, let's just jump in.
Let's do scoring. I gave scoring an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
I gave scoring an 8 out of 10 because... I gave scoring an 8 out of 10 because... because it was really good horror movie scoring. And I would have given it a 7 out of 10 if it was just plain good, but there was actually some memorable stuff in there too, so that gave it the extra point. It wasn't a 10 out of 10 just because I only give that 10 out of 10 shit to like...
The Shining or something.
I don't know. I actually, it was a 9 out of 10, and then I was listening to the soundtrack for There Will Be Blood, and I was like, oh no, wait, that's a 10 out of 10, and this is not even close, so it can't be more than an 8 out of 10. So, yeah. For me, it's an 8 out of 10. It had that Siki Lisa song was really good, though. The one that bookended the film. And, like, it started with it and then it ended with it. I thought that was a really nice song. Really
Nice.
cool.
Yeah, I also give it an 8 out of 10. I don't think it's as good as some other famous horror movie soundtracks out there, but it definitely...
The Shining.
The Shining. Plus 10 out of 10 cinematography. It earned it. Let's move on to writing. So I want to go first on this one.
Go for it, man.
I gave writing a 9 out of 10. This movie was really well written. Like, really, you could just, the whole time going through this movie, you're like, oh man, there's a physical story going on, there's an emotional story going on, there's a metaphorical story going on, and they all relate through their expression of themes, motifs, symbolism. Like, that is good writing. That's what good writing is. It's multiple layers that are tied together by a lot of these themes and concepts, and that's how you're able to think about it and talk about it for more than 20 seconds after the movie ends.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I mean, 9 out of 10, that's pretty generous for you.
I walked out, and that was honestly it's why I had to bump up some of these other scores, because honestly, a lot of the rest of this movie didn't impress me as much, but the writing just stood out in such a huge way. I think this is the first movie we've seen so far that's been written very...
It's had writing, yeah, that's had writing. It's very good, yeah.
I think, like, the use of symbolism, especially in this movie...
Yeah, the deer.
The deer thing, that was like, oh my god, it was like, dude, you get it. And the whole hunting lodge theme, and just the whole aspect of, like, and the way he tied everything together was really nice. It's like, yes, you're using this predator-prey, metaphor here to tie this all together, and, like, that fits on the physical, emotional, and social, or whatever, level. The meta level. The meta. I also thought, you didn't like the humor, but I actually enjoyed it. I'm not a big Key and Peele fan. I think it's like comedy for kids.
It might again be because you were there with somebody. I guarantee if I was there with you, I mean, we'd probably be laughing and giggling at some of this shit that was on the screen. But I was there alone,
That's true.
And I was sitting there eating my popcorn alone, my Twizzlers alone. These jokes happen. I'm just a bitter man eating my popcorn and Twizzlers. So, anyway, maybe that colored my perception, but...
What other comments did you have on writing?
None. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. I don't know. It was structured very well. You had his internal dilemma. He, like, changes over time. Like, he learns to, forgive himself about his sort of internal deal. So, that's the big thing, for both of us.
Yep.
A character needs to, like, change over the story. Otherwise, like, why bother?
Yep. So, Jordan Peele, 2 big freaking thumbs up. Good job on the writing. It was really nice. It was nice to finally be in a movie and be like, oh, okay, some people can still actually write. Like, we haven't graduated to this world where everything is f***ing J.J. Abrams.
Spectacle. Yeah. Everything is spectacle.
Yeah, because spectacle's boring. It's not interesting. All right, story.
Spectacle can be boring. It's not necessarily boring.
Yeah. All right, so, story. I gave story a 4 out of 10. It was just unoriginal. I mean, this story has been hashed out in so many different movies in so many different ways. Basically, every angle of the storyline has showed up somewhere else at some point in time. It's basically a reverse Deliverance or reverse Wrong Turn kind of movie. And then plus the Stepford Wives, and then your big point.
It's the Skeleton Key, which is like, I think it borrows like a ton from the Skeleton Key, because it's like, it's the races, right? It's got the race thing, but it's reversed. In the Skeleton Key, it's and I thought the Skeleton Key was better, to be honest. Yeah, in the Skeleton Key, it's like these old like slaves used voodoo magic to get into like their white slave owners' children, and then like they switch bodies so that they lived inside the slave owners' children, but then like the children were inside the slaves, but they couldn't speak, so they lynched the slaves, and I thought that was creepy. I thought that stuck with me for a while.
No, I think you're totally right. I mean, if you just throw together all of these, like, it gets all of the weird, like, hyper 1950s white from like Stepford Wives kind of stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
It's got the whole Skeleton Key thing. It's got the sort of fish out of water, but not fish in the countryside. It's fish in the suburb sort of thing going on. I mean, there's really no angle of this movie that is entirely original, to be honest. It's timely, you know what I mean? Politically, it's very timely. So you can look at it in that way. But again, I don't think there's a single concept in this movie that hasn't shown up somewhere else before. So it's just not an original story. That's why I give it a 4 out of 10.
Ditto. 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for me is average, and I didn't think the story was bad. You know,
I docked it.
I just thought I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't think it was original. So, you know, not bad, not original. 7 out of 10. C.
Interesting.
Let's move to settings.
Sure.
I gave settings a 5 out of 10 because there really wasn't any. It was kind of boring. It's just like, you know, some upper class white liberal house, and there you go. That's it.
I gave it a 6. In the same way, it was just kind of adequate. I mean, it was a place where they lived, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a lazy attitude towards settings. The physical space you're inhabiting can always contribute to the story. It's never just a backdrop for the story to happen. Stories happen in spaces. So you should put as much effort into designing the space as you do designing other things like the sounds and the music and everything.
I think maybe that was their intention. Like, we want this to look like the average house. These are the average people, but what's lurking beneath is this terrible racism. Anyway.
Maybe. Sound design. I gave this an 8. I liked the sound in this movie. I thought it played a role too. They did use like the rain and the silence and the voices fading out and the clinking of the spoon and the music.
Yeah, I thought especially I was gonna give sound design a pretty good score. I probably like an 8 out of 10. It's not on my list, but yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10. The spoon clinking it's kind of annoying, you know?
Yeah.
To be honest, but I mean that's sort of what it was designed to be. You know, this sort of like
Speaking of pacing, let's move it along.
All right, pacing.
I gave it a 5. I thought it was pretty weak. This was a big issue.
That's funny. I gave it a 5 as well. We finally have landed on the same number for something.
Yeah. It just, you know, this movie had a style problem too. It couldn't figure out what it wants to be. Is it a comedy? Is it a social commentary? Is it a horror movie? No, you can't be all those things at once. By the way, the people right now are saying, but you could be all those things. No, you can't. You have to be something. And you can have elements.
And it's actually better if you're something, you know? It's just so much better if you're not trying to, like, you know, spin all these plates at the same time.
Yeah, because then you wind up half-assing 5 things and nothing comes out properly. And pacing was kind of a symptom of that problem with this movie. There was, you know, the comedy scenes were like, because, you know, this guy's written a ton of sketch comedy, so the comedy scenes were
I mean, I've seen the show. I've seen Key and Peele. I mean, the scene in the police station especially sounded like you just ripped me out of this movie theater and you plopped me on my couch and I've turned on Comedy Central. You know? So I thought it really, moments like that took me out of the movie.
And then we have to come all the way back to the movie theater.
Yeah.
And there's this weird dead space before the next supposedly scary part happens. It's just this weird dead space of him kind of like staring off into nothing or like clicking with his camera. It just, I don't know. There's definitely some learning to be done for Jordan Peele when it comes to figuring out how to do this kind of stuff, because the pacing just wasn't good.
Hopefully he's his harshest critic, because he has none. He has no critics.
Yeah, we're the only ones, I think.
We're the only ones. Hopefully he watches this video and he goes, you know what? These two guys are right. Anyway, so yeah, pacing 5 out of 10. Oh, short. It was a short movie. It was short. Like, it took you out of the moment a lot, and it was not long enough. Like, it just, when things did come along, it was just like bleep, bloop, blop, bloop. You know?
All right, let's move on to acting. Let's talk about acting.
Acting. Oh, 5 out of 10.
Really? So I gave this a 7 out of 10. I actually, and there's a reason it didn't get higher, and I'll get into that because I think I might be tuning into like the same thing that you were picking up on. Honestly, I think most of the people that we saw talking on screen were doing a decent job acting for what they needed to be doing. Like that weird fat guy that's like, black is hip, and like all the other weird people in this movie. All the black people that were acting strangely, I thought were like doing a good job of it mostly, except for the weird skinny guy with the hat.
I thought everybody was a little too cartoony, to be honest. Nobody, like, there was no realism to their performance. It was all caricature. You know, which maybe is what they intended. Maybe they were going for that. I don't know. It was a little too over the top for.
The only standout bad performances to me were the son. Not so much his acting, but his
right.
his
yeah,
accent.
I definitely deduced a whole point for everything about him, like the way he was trying to be creepy, and I get that it's a horror movie. You want to be creepy. You want to have like this dude is scaring the hell out of me right now, but like it didn't work. He just sounded like he was autistic or something.
He had this weird Brooklyn accent, and no one else in the family had it. And it's like you realize like children don't just randomly have accents.
Pick up accents, yeah.
And they don't pick up an accent that thick for going to school in Brooklyn for 3 years or 4 years. I mean, it just like it didn't make any sense. The mom, who by the way is the love interest from 40-Year-Old Virgin, she was just like flat and boring, just like a flat soda poured out like 3 days ago and you forgot to drink it and you find it and you're like, I wonder if this is still good, and you drink it. It's like bleh. That was her performance. And then the last one that really just annoyed the shit out of me. I don't think he was a bad actor necessarily, but our main character, I forget what his name was. I forget all the names in this movie, actually. But
who cares?
Our main character, he just didn't do anything. Like, he didn't have any lines. He's just like clicking his camera and going, yeah, uh-huh, sure, okay, cool. What the fuck? Weird. Okay, cool, sure. I told you so. It's just... yeah, I understand that. I think the intention behind this was to make him be a blank slate so that we could relate to him. But he was...
Or make him be like our reaction instead of just his own character.
Yeah, our window. But he wound up being so blank that I couldn't associate with him at all. He was just a person, you know, but he was barely a person. And even that whole part when he's talking to the blind art gallery guy, right?
Yep.
You feel like him in that situation, he must feel so trapped and unable to express himself because he's around all these weird hoity-toity white people, right? Like, that was the point, right? That he doesn't feel like he can express himself. And then there's this blind guy who starts telling him all this stuff like, yeah, man, you really have an incredible eye. Like, you get it. You understand art. Don't you think if you were an artist and you were feeling pent up that day, you would completely unload on this guy? Yeah. Like, don't you think you'd open up everything about how you're feeling to this guy? Talk about how your art inspires you. Talk about your fears in life or whatever. Like, I don't know. And this is a movie. This isn't even real life. So our characters only have an hour and a half to explain themselves to us before we walk out of the theater and forget who the fuck they were. And this didn't do it. He just, I don't know. I think that was part of the reason why I wasn't so excited at the end of the movie.
You hadn't identified with the character enough to like...
And I wasn't worried for him. I knew he was going to... I mean, there was only one part where I was like, uh-oh, and that was when the cops, like the cop car, which turned out to be the TSA car, showed up at the end.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god. Oh, speaking of which, just to cycle into politics for a second. So at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, he's killed everybody. The girl has been shot. She's dying. He's like strangling her, but then he decides he can't do it. He can't kill her. Like, he's not an evil guy. You know,
he's not an animal.
He's not an animal. He's let go of his hate. And then all of a sudden, a cop car shows up, and you see the lights of the cop car projected against like their faces. And of course, this movie comes out in early 2017. We have all of BLM from 2015 and 2016 ringing in our heads when we see this movie. And so, what's the big thing about BLM? Is cops shooting black people. And so, sitting there, cop car pulls up, black guy covered in a bunch of white people's blood. And of course, I'm sitting here going, oh my god, they're going to shoot this guy. And I said that because of two things. One, I'm like, oh my god, they're going to shoot this guy. I was like, that's going to suck. Like, I was hoping he was going to get away. Like, I was still hoping our hero was going to win. You know, even though I didn't really think he was that great of a character, I still wanted him to win. And then at the same time, like, I can't fucking believe they're going to do this right now. I can't believe this movie is already political enough. I can't believe they're going to
go there.
They're going to go there, and I'm like, that's just going to be too much. And then they did. They kind of made you think they were going to do that.
They made you think about it. You know, which is what they were doing. That's what the whole thing was. You know.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Those are my issues with the acting, but honestly, I think most of the performances got me there. Like they kept me in it.
5 out of 10 for me, 7 out of 10 for you. What haven't we done? Cinematography, I thought, was pretty decent.
Yeah.
8 out of 10. The guy who filmed this knows what he's doing. So,
yeah.
You know, good on him. Good on him.
Right. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was good. I think him in the trance world, any shot involving the deer, like the grandfather running at him in the middle of the night, the opening scene, there were just a lot of well-shot parts of this movie, so that was definitely put together well. Let's jump in on style.
Style, I give it 4 out of 10. Because it wasn't really like, if you didn't tell me this was Jordan Peele, I'd be like, this is just some director, this is just some guy.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't leave his impression, he didn't leave his mark, he didn't, there wasn't a stamp of Jordan Peele on here, which is what I need when I talk about style. I need the director to, like, show something other than, like, his writing,
Yeah, I think for me, I give it a 5 out of 10. Kind of a lot of the same reasons. I couldn't figure out what this movie really wanted to be, and I'm still not quite sure. I think it's a comedy, but I'm still not quite sure. And again, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept it can be both. That's not a valid answer. No, it can't. A movie is one thing or another, and it can borrow elements. For instance, you can have humor in the movie Jaws, but Jaws is not a comedy.
Exactly.
You can have scary parts in a funny movie, but again, it's a comedy. That's how it works. And I think this movie just rode that line poorly. It couldn't figure out how to work it. The audience either believes it's a horror movie or the audience believes it's a comedy. And so either you believe one of these two things and just kind of sit through the weird tone difference, or you're left completely confused and you have no clue what the movie wants to be. There are moments that are funny. There are moments that could be scary, but there's never an effective marriage between the two of them. It's always just this weird dead space in between that you kind of have to sit through. It's like you're playing Overwatch and you've got a cooldown on your you're playing Roadhog and you've got a cooldown on your hook, and you just have to wait for that ticker to go down, and you're just kind of sitting there waiting for that to go down. And that's what a ton of this movie was. And so
video game reference, what a nerd. Go
GG. Anyway, so those are my scores. I already have my overall tallied. If you tally everything up, this to me comes out to a 66%, which on my scale, where 5 is average, 7 is good, and 10 is perfect, I think it's pretty true to form.
I gave it a 9,600,000. Wait a minute, I did something wrong here. 8 to the 1 to the 1 to the 3.
225 to the 3. I have found the enemy. Come and face me.
My score came out to 62.5, which I'm going to grade on a curve and bring it up to a C minus. I'm just gonna bring it up to a 70, just because it's his directorial debut. You get a good 10 points for that. So C minus.
I think that's fair. Honestly, if you look at my rating scale, 5 is a dead C, right? 0 is an F and 100 is an A plus. So if you kind of stretch mine out, mine comes out to be like a C plus, maybe a B minus. It's somewhere in there. If you were to put a letter grade on it, I just like to normalize on 5.
I got you.
I think it's I mean,
everything between 50 and 0 for me is just varying degrees of failure.
That's kind of why I'm trying to do this normalized thing, so that I can express how bad something is and have it like really mean something, and also so that when we do finally see a 10 out of 10 movie, it'll mean something when I say it's 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
But I think this is pretty true. When I first did my ratings, it came out to a 60. I thought that was too low. But 66 is pretty much on point. I mean, there are a lot of good things about this movie, and then there's just stuff that's pretty amateur.
Yeah, so there's our review, guys. We're not gone. We're not sorry.
And I soon go to Dubliners to hell.
But we're not done. We're not down and out. We're just taking a little break. But we're gonna have a ton of new content for you guys. So why don't you close us out here?
Well, okay. I mean, before we close it out, I do want to tie this back into the context in which it was shown. I think if you come back to this movie in 10 years and watch it, you'll be like, hey, that's an okay movie. But right now, so many people, perfect movie. This is not a perfect movie. You think it's a perfect movie because it's going along some political point that you want it to make, but art can be political, but art should not only be political, and political art should not be given a pass just because it is politics you agree with. Straight up. Art should be judged on what it is. Yeah, so I don't know. Stuff like that, it didn't ruin the movie for me, but it did kind of make me be like, okay, I mean, you can't, because of the way they set this movie up, you can't judge it without paying attention to the context. It's not like The Shining, where it's like, oh, well, you have to understand it's really all a metaphor for the oil crisis in 1974, right? The Shining is timeless. This movie will make no sense hopefully this movie will make no sense in 50 years. And I think that is bad art, because art should stand the test of time.
Be timeless, yeah.
Otherwise, it's a political cartoon, you know.
So tune in next week. We're gonna watch Moonlight.
Are we really?
Are we? I don't know. We might as well.
I guess we can. There's actually a ton of good movies coming out in March, guys. We've been taking a little bit of a hiatus. Work's been really busy. We've just been taking a little bit of a break. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please remember, like, share, subscribe, comment on this video with how you felt about the movie. Share it with your friends, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace. The flames of love extinct. The past is fully gone.